So I've been thinking about this for a while, but today it really resonated with me. Why are the Russians moving so slowly on the battlefield? Why can't they take more ground? I mean, Russia's army is supposed to be the second best army in the world, and yet their progress is so incredibly slow. Well, we'll talk about that throughout this video. So here we're going to start with this. In October 2024, that was a turning point in the war when Russian deaths went vertical in relation to territory gained. This is Jay in Kyiv posting this chart from the ISW. Okay, so the blue line here, if we're looking at the blue line is how many Russian casualties there were, and it accumulates over time, right? And the blue line, you're crossing in October across the red line, that's territory controlled. And we see territory controlled started with 25% of the country's territory, and then it drops down to about a little less than 20%, maybe 18%, something like that, of the country's territory. And yeah, and it just kind of stays there. I mean, it's slightly, ever so slightly ticking up, but the vertical here from October, well, from March to March of 2024 to 2025 it's really shocking how much it's gone up. And then from March 2025, it's like, this is the time, like this was all through the winter and it's still sending men into slaughter. And then in March 2025, it just petered out. Now, you know that Putin is preparing for another big summer offensive of some sort. So that's not off the table. But what happened here that is just falling apart? Well, okay, let's look at the daily, and then we'll try to look at the battlefield, and we'll try to make some sense of this. 1,170 Russians off the battlefield day over day. And again, that's pretty low. It used to be 15, 16, 17, 1,800 Russians off the battlefield because they were like just throwing these men into the meat grinder. 8 tanks, 27 armored fighting vehicles, 48 artillery systems, 171 vehicles and fuel tanks. And this, again, these numbers are kind of low. If we look at it, it's the average for May is 1,261, and the average for April was 1,210, and the average for March was 1,328. So we're right in about the center of where we should be. Here's Ragnar Gudmundsson's dashboard. Engagements and casualties are below the 7-day average. Okay, well, we just had the ceasefire of some sort. Land-based equipment losses and drone interceptions are back to pre-truce levels. And when I say ceasefire, it wasn't an actual ceasefire or real truce. Officer batch plus 48. That's 5 per day in the last 4 batches. Now, let's look at that. So here we see a total confirmed killed in action Russian officers. This dashboard is just incredible. Confirmed in action Russian soldiers that were killed. 5,969. Okay, so what this means, let's look at this. At least 5,969 Russian officers have been eliminated in the Russian invasion of Ukraine since 24 February 2022. So now, this is using public Russian obituaries and graves. So it's at least this. It's probably significantly more. But we know that there are about 10 generals that have been killed here. And the numbers go down for each different, or go up rather, for each different rank. So there's been actually over 1,000 senior officers, that's defined as major to general, major, lieutenant colonel, colonel, or general, 1,000 senior officers killed since the beginning of the war. Now, remember, when we're looking at this chart, there's 967,000 Russians off the battlefield. Now, it'll be 1 million by mid-June or so, maybe a little longer than that because the numbers have been going down. But nonetheless, we're almost to 1 million Russian casualties. And yeah, it's just amazing to watch this. So the Russians are taking this drubbing when they thought that they were going to roll over Ukraine in 3 days. I mean, it's really fascinating to watch. Okay, Ukrainian air defense team shot down 55 Shahed drones overnight, landed another 30 drones out of the 108 launch. I'm not seeing a lot of damage. I am seeing things like this. And part of this is that the Russians are attacking apartment buildings in the middle of the night rather than attacking enemy soldiers in the middle of the night, which at least would be a legitimate target in the military sense. But no, here a Russian drone attacked energy workers' vehicle in the Sumy region, according to the Sumy Regional Military Administration. Preliminary reports indicate that one person has been killed. Really, this is what you're going to go after? So part of their part of the reason that they're going so slowly is that they're using their resources poorly. Okay, let's look at the battlefield. Sometimes I go over, usually I just go look at Pokrovsk, but sometimes we'll go through like an intensity chart. Okay, Russian forces have reached the east of Tinky in the Kursk region, and so they're actually breaking out a little bit of that. Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance units are operating in the center of town. Okay, so the Ukrainians are pushing back into this new patch of Kursk. Meanwhile, in the rest of Ukraine, Kherson region at the Dnipro River, where there's one enemy attack. Kupiansk direction, Kharkiv region, Ukrainian defenders stopped 2 attacks. These sound pretty small. Kharkiv direction, enemy has twice carried out offensive actions in Vovchansk. And then in the northwest of temporarily occupied Horlivka, Russian invaders stormed Ukrainian positions 6 times. In Zaporizhzhia region, the enemy conducted 6 offensive actions. If this sounds like not a lot, it's because it's not a lot. Now, maybe it's because the Ukrainians are being able to keep them at bay because of drones. That could be part of it, and I think that is part of it. But it also could be that Russia's reconstituting for the major offensive, and it could be other things that we're just not even necessarily aware of at this point. Southernmost battlefront in Donetsk region, Russian invaders tried to break through Ukrainian defenses 7 times. Siversk direction, 4 assaults. In the Bakhmut front, defenders repelled 4 attacks, so that's a total of 8. In the Lyman direction, Russian invaders attacked 20 times, and Pokrovsk is going to be the big one, 38. But 38's not a lot. I mean, that's pretty low compared to some other days. Okay, things like this are happening. Ukrainian loitering munition takes out a Russian Buk M1 air defense system. And so we see military equipment, trucks, and personnel destroyed in the Kharkiv region. Russian tanks are burning. Personnel are being targeted by FPV fire from the 3rd Assault Brigade. And again, when you're looking at these kinds of things, so when you're looking at these, like if it wasn't for drones, I think that the war could have gone very, very differently. I'm not saying that the Ukrainians would have lost, but it would have been quite a drubbing. Now, while I'm talking about that, Ukraine they're hurting too. Like they have to reconstitute. They're holding the front lines, but it's somewhat tenuous. And the Russians, are going to be making a big push. So yeah, it's a bad thing all the way around, but the Russians just haven't gotten the traction that you would expect. Here's a FPV drone going right into a Russian hangar to destroy a T-72 tank and a BMD-2 infantry fighting vehicle, right? I mean, there's the video for you. Okay, Ukraine's intel reveals specs of Russia's new S-8000 Banderol cruise missile used since April to hit southern Ukraine, launched from Orion UAVs. It flies 500 kilometers, carries a 115-kilogram warhead. Despite sanctions, it's built with parts from the U.S., Japan, South Korea, Australia, and China. Isn't that interesting how they are able to avoid the sanctions and still get it? Now, 500 Russian rocket launchers have been destroyed in 39 months of war, and now North Korea replacements are falling to Ukrainian HIMARS, starting with a KN-09 in Kursk Oblast. And then we see this on like infantry operations. Operators of Ukrainian Special Operations Forces spotted a Russian infantry group during a recon mission behind Russian lines and engaged them. 8 of them were eliminated. And then we see people like this lady. This lady's a hero. She's a Ukrainian nurse. Ukrainian nurse destroyed Russian unit with a single grenade launcher shot, saving her entire unit from encirclement. Combat medic named Slavanta took command when her unit's leader was unavailable during an intense Russian assault on the southern Zaporizhzhia front. She was receiving tactical guidance via radio and single-handedly neutralized the threat. Svetlana joined the military as a volunteer in 2022, then lost her son in fighting near Bakhmut, but dedicated herself to saving lives of her fellow soldiers. That's a hero right there. All right, Britain is sending Ukraine 5 real tanks and 30 decoys to trick Russia into wasting ammo on fake targets, according to, and I've seen things like this before. Apparently, Russia thought that it had destroyed some significant American material, which was all decoy and that sort of thing early on in the war. Okay. A couple last things and we'll wrap up. It sounds like Zelensky's mom has been concerned that he's not eating well enough while defending his country. And so here he's saying, Mom, thank you. In his address yesterday, Mom, don't worry. I've eaten everything. Everything's fine. Okay. So I don't begrudge him that at all. Meanwhile, Russian invaders are erecting a monument to Soviet dictator Stalin in occupied Melitopol. Okay. The number of monuments to Stalin has gone up over 100. Is I think at 100 in teens, 110 plus, and 90 plus of those have gone up during Putin's time in power. Isn't that interesting? So Putin knows what he's doing with that. All right, last little bit. On this day in 1997, negotiations to end the First Chechen War began. As a result, we promised not to use force or the threat of force forever. 2 years later, we staged some false flags and invaded and killed over 100,000 civilians, so you can trust us in negotiations now. We'll talk about those negotiations in the next video. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.